the one that I loved the most was the strawberry cheesecake.
Mm-hmm.
And, you fast forward basically 19, 20 years later. I'm aging myself, but 19, 20 years later, strawberry cheesecake ice cream is still my favorite.
Still a goat.
Pink is just such a cool color. I think, look, we're coordinating on that as well.
It is Wednesday.
It is Wednesday. See, I got the memo.
Yes. Young and hip. Young and hip.
You say it's the first time we're meeting, but realistically, it just feels like we've been on the same wavelength.
Exactly.
So that, that's where the love of strawberry cheesecake really comes from, just childhood.
Here in the cut, we challenge our guests to finish a tub of ice cream before the end of the conversation. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. We're here on the Cool Table in the cut with Dana Abraham. Now, today on the show, this is our first time meeting in person. It's a very special experience. If you're watching us for the first time, we challenge our guests to finish a tub of ice cream for the end of the conversation. If you want to listen live, you can hear us on the radio at CJRU 12:8 a.m. in Toronto. That's Wednesdays at 11 a.m. And all episodes of The Cool Table are at adrielsmiley.com. Before we get started on anything else, welcome to the show and tell me about this love you have for strawberry cheesecake.
Thanks for having me. Firstly, I'm 1/3 done, so I'm getting there.
Jeez.
So strawberry cheesecake ice cream, where it really started was when we were kids. We grew up in Royal Crescent, Hamilton, and government subsidized housing, immigrant family, single mothers. So we were on, the stipend that the government would provide just to help aid, And once in a blue moon, there was two family outings.
Okay.
One was McDonald's, and the other was Dairy Queen. So
legendary,
right? We all know that. We all know those outings.
I was ready for Dairy Queen so fast. I was like, yeah, 100%.
So we would go to Dairy Queen. We get blizzards, and the one that I loved the most was the strawberry cheesecake.
Mm-hmm.
And you fast forward basically 19, 20 years later. I'm aging myself, but 19, 20 years later, strawberry cheesecake ice cream is still my favorite.
Still a goat.
Pink is just such a cool color. I think, look, we're coordinating on that as well.
It is Wednesday.
It is Wednesday. See, I got the memo.
Yes. Young and hip. Young and hip.
You say it's the first time we're meeting, but realistically, it just feels like we've been on the same wavelength.
Exactly.
So that, that's where the love of strawberry cheesecake really comes from, just childhood.
I feel better about your chances of actually finishing this than a lot of people who've been here. So no pressure or anything, but if you don't finish, just know I'll be disappointed because it feels like you got a good shot right here.
This is a pint. I eat tubs.
My God, I eat tubs. Okay, big dog, I see you.
So does my belly.
Yeah. Doesn't show. Man, the thing that I always thought about is that, like your way you grew up, how you grew up, living in Hamilton. Like I was just on a panel talking about Montreal versus Toronto. And I think us Toronto people, we forget that there's like hoods outside of Toronto. You know what I mean? So I wanted to talk about like what growing up in Hamilton was like, because I think that people have a certain idea of what they think of when they think of Hamilton.
For sure.
And even like from hearing a story firsthand from you, but like you described like how you grew up and everything, and then you said Hamilton. I said that didn't add up to what you just said before that. So talk about what growing up in Hamilton was like for the people who, the Torontonians like me, the Scarborough mans like me, who think we're the center of the universe.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, look, 1997 in September, we came to Canada. My mom had an art exhibition. I came with my direct older sister, Nancy, and my mom and my dad. My mom was pregnant with my baby sister, Hanifa, at the time, and she went into premature labor, I would say, October 3rd. And through naturalization law, Hanifa became a citizen, so my dad convinced us to stay, convinced my mom, I should say, to stay, get citizenship for me and Nancy, go to school here. We were affluent back home, so money wasn't an issue. Haven't seen my dad since.
Damn. So
he left, took our passports, haven't seen him since. He embezzled the money from our family, sold properties, paintings, clothing, everything, anything you can think of. And, you know, ironically, me and my sisters were talking about this over dinner a couple days ago, and my older sister had her perspective because she remembers him and I don't. Long story short, I have no animosity towards them, but that's where our story really began for me. 1997, and through that year, we were in Toronto. We bounced around from homeless shelters and food banks in Toronto because we had nowhere to go.
Mm-hmm.
About a year and a half or 2 years later, roughly, the homeless shelter had gotten us government subsidized housing placement, and that happened to be in Hamilton.
Okay.
And we didn't know what Hamilton was. We didn't know how it would become a part of our life, but we ended up moving to 2 Oriole Crescent, unit number 5. Which, if you go to Oriole Crescent, it's a home right on the street,
Mm-hmm.
and right next to us, there was a family that was living there. They had a mentally ill daughter,
Mm-hmm.
and now the unit number 6 is actually like the offices for the entire complex. Um, right when you get there, you don't know much,
Mm-hmm.
especially as a child. Like I was 8, 9 years old, 9 years old, I would say, and you don't understand what a neighborhood really can do to you, or all the different traumas, or what a neighborhood's about. I mean, my mom could assume, but we didn't know much. But that Oriole Crescent at the time was the home of prostitution, gangs, narcotics, and if you wanted anything in the black market, you could pretty much go to Royal Crescent and get it.
Damn.
At around 10 years old, I was going to school and I just get beat up. My mom could afford, I mean, in Scarborough, in
Mhm.
relativity, you guys would have pizza pop deals at school,
For
just like we
sure.
did.
Yeah.
So we're not that different that way.
Mhm. Okay.
We
There you
both had
go.
pizza pop deals. My mom would give me the toonie, and at this
Mhm.
time she was working at E.D. Smith, the jam factory. She
Yeah,
was putting on lids.
Okay.
And then at nighttime, she'd go and work at a furniture store. So she'd work
Jeez.
14-hour days. My older sister would basically be our
Mhm.
second mom. So
Mhm.
she sacrificed her youth to take care of me and my baby sister, Hanifa. And for lunch, I'd just get beat up every day. And the same dude for about 2 months would take my toonie. He made a killing.
Yo, he came up on you.
Yeah, he made a killing. 2 times 60, whatever that is. So, at the end of the day, that's when my mom put me into boxing.
Mhm.
So you couple being beat up and then all of a sudden understanding how to compete, or I guess not compete yet, but understand how to fight.
Mhm.
And that's just a really poor recipe for becoming just a, hard-nosed kid in a neighborhood that's designed to create hard-nosed people. So it's really no different. Gun violence is
mhm,
prevalent in
mhm.
Oriole Crescent. It's all cleaned up now. But
Mhm.
growing up in Hamilton isn't a cakewalk. It's
Yeah.
it's rugged, it's
Mhm.
gritty, it's raw. There's bikers in Hamilton just like there
Mhm.
is in Toronto, and
Yeah.
it does create a very lucid picture of what it means to be rugged and tough
Mhm.
in Steel City. But having said that, the city's evolved so much from my time as a child to my
Mhm.
time now as an adult, and it's such a vibrant city now. It's beautiful. It's a home of small businesses, amazing restaurants, cities
Mhm.
like or streets like Locke Street,
Mhm.
King William Street that have this beautiful, beautiful walkway where you just see so much synergy in the populace. It's a brilliant community. It's the home of filming now, as far as I'd say, outside of GTA.
Yeah.
And if not, we're slowly going to start competing once
Mhm.
larger studios and infrastructures are built. And I really pride myself in Hamilton. I live there.
Mhm.
I walk through the neighborhood openly. And
Mhm.
as a kid growing up there, it's really no different for me.
Mhm.
When I go into my friend's restaurant or if
Mhm.
I'm on a movie set. I rode my
Mhm.
bicycle to the movie set for 100 Lives, which is really, really
Jeez.
cool.
That's pretty ill.
Yeah. I mean, who
That's
gets to
pretty
ride their
ill.
bicycle and then just park it right outside the trailer doors? That's a cool feeling.
That's pretty. Yeah. Like, I want to talk about boxing because that's something that we definitely talked about that before. Like we
Mhm.
haven't touched on that at all before. But how's it like? Now that you're more successful, like living in the same place where you grew up, like, do you feel that nostalgia like often, or like how that?
Yeah.
Because when this pandemic started, I moved back to Ajax,
Mm.
and everything is not. It doesn't feel like the same.
Place?
When I drive
Yeah.
by my high school, I'm like, oh man, like at least once a week. So you do have some of those same moments now that you're still like working in Hamilton.
Well, I'll tell you what. Hamilton for me is a space that I've tried to run away from as long as I could remember.
Mhm.
When university hit, I went to Windsor first. I bounced around school to school trying to figure out what I want to do in my life. Never in a million years would I, at that moment, have said I was going to be an actor. But I went to University of Windsor first, predominantly because I want to play football. Um, didn't work out, left, and I went to York University in that following year in January. Didn't work out. The team wasn't doing so well, and I bounced. I left. That summer, I played summer football in Hamilton again, and then I ended up at Queen's University in Kingston playing football. Didn't work out, left. Finished the year out and came back home. And then I finished schooling at Brock at that point. At that point, trying to pretty much realizing I wanted to be an
Yeah.
actor. Then once I spent a year in acting training school in Toronto, working at a company called Lafarge, driving mixer trucks,
Damn.
writing screenplays at the same time, I ended up in Los Angeles. I packed up my car, ended up in LA. Trained there, met so many fine people there, where I really learned about the filmmaking process through so many mentors and friends. Ended up back at home in Hamilton. Then I moved to Toronto, and ended up back in Hamilton. So long story short, I ended up going back to the city over and over and over again. The universe and God works in very mysterious ways. There's a calling that we have in life, and our destiny is kind of predetermined. I find I'm
Yeah.
studying Stoicism. I was telling you, and all of a sudden, I find that free will is so fleeting. There's no such thing. It's your perspective. That's the only thing you pretty much have in control. So I'm acknowledging that Hamilton's my home, and for anybody that's out there that would say, "Oh, it's a terrible city or terrible populace or the community's not built up or whatever." Well, I always say to them now, Toronto was a Hamilton before it became Toronto. Every city needs economic stimulus.
Facts.
It needs pioneers, and it needs development. And I could keep packing up and keep trying to leave and keep trying to find a home. But at the end, that's where my nephew is. That's where my sisters are. That's where my mother is. That's where my community is. And that's where my support system is. So it's up to me to pioneer the growth of a city. And so you're right. When I go to Locke Street, it's all developed. It's very, very different. I mean, of course, evolution and innovation and architectural developments. But in that cities where the people are that I grew up around, and just to be able to, I went to one of my oldest friends, Stag and Doe on Saturday, and ran into so many familiar faces. To see the pride in people to say, "Hey man, like I'm seeing what you're doing. It's so, so cool." That's a nostalgia factor.
Yeah.
To understand that at one point I was a kid that grew up on the streets of Oriole Crescent, up to no good, to now having spent millions of dollars in economic stimulus in my direct home with 500 jobs over the pandemic.
And it's different because I feel like when you come back the other times, it's a feeling of like disappointment of like, I was definitely trying to leave this place to make it happen, So when you come back, it's like, and that's why like I thought of that, because I'm like, this time must feel different than the other times coming back. And I would say like, for Ajax, it's similar to me. It's like it felt better than the other times.
Absolutely, because
being
it's about
home.
that factor of owning it at that point, right? And I think life in just general, we fight so hard and spend so much focus, energy, and time trying to evade certain elements and outcomes,
Facts.
except embracing them. And I think at this point in my life, because even leading to the release of Neon Lights, I've been really scared in many, many instances. But I'm watching The Offer on Paramount Plus about the making of Godfather. I've seen so many relativities that I'm just like, man, it's all difficult. And then I was watching the Defiant ones about Jimmy Iovine and Dre, and even Dre's first album, The Chronic. Everybody turned it down until Interscope took it up. Interscope at the time, not really being anything big.
Yeah.
We got turned down by almost every distributor for Neon Lights.
Crazy.
And out comes Entertainment One taking a chance on us. So all in all to say, man, every time feels a little bit different in life. You just have to embrace the elements that's coming toward you, because some things are just out of your control, And right now, it's just about owning it, embracing the differences.
Yeah, I feel like me and Chris talked about it before you were here, like embracing that part of it that you can't answer all the questions to, or feels like that. It's hard to, like, easier said than done, but I feel like that's kind of the whole point,
For sure.
Embracing that is the better part. Let's get to boxing, because listen, you're a former national champion.
Yeah.
I want you to give me two things. First, tell me about like, when did you get good? I know you started because you were getting your ass whooped at school, get your money taken from you at school.
Yeah.
But when did you start getting good? You felt like once you started boxing, like how long did it take for you to feel like you were good at least?
Yeah, ironically, man, I don't I don't even feel like I was ever that good, because if
Really?
I was, I mean, it would have been something I'm doing today.
Mhm,
I think I'm the type of, and I will get to boxing, but I think
mhm,
I'm the type of person, and this is just goes without saying. I think I'm the type of guy that's always going to leave something behind if I'm not the
mhm,
best at it,
mhm,
or I can sense that I will be one day the best at it.
mhm,
Film happens to be something that I feel like I want to be the best to
mhm,
be able to do it. So I stick with it.
mhm,
Boxing, I don't ever feel like I was ever at that capacity.
mhm.
But having said that, I started in September of 2001. So I
Okay.
was 10 years old at the time. December 4th is my birthday,
Mhm.
same as Jay-Z. So I always throw that out there because I always feel
But
like I'm somehow
that's
energetically
a
tied
flex.
to
It's a
him. Yeah,
flex. It's a
yeah, it is.
flex.
It is.
No, he's the same as you.
Hey, you know what? I gotta say, I'll take that compliment.
Mhm,
I aspire so much to be like Jay-Z and what
mhm.
he's done. So it's such a good, we're tied to those
No, it's
things,
a you know, no, that's a great
It's an
birthday. That's
energy.
a
It's an
great
energy
yeah,
thing,
that's a great
man.
one.
We celebrate the same time, so he's sending me energy, I'm sending him energy. It's all
Yeah.
good, man. And we're only like a 1 hour flight, so
Yeah.
it's all. But so I started in September, walked in the gym, and I'll never forget. It's one of those scents that
Mhm.
I can remember still to this day. It smelled like sweat and just beat up leather from the bags, right?
Okay, yeah, yeah.
It was in like a basement of this community center, Normanhurst Community Center, and
Sounds
off
about
of
right.
Barton Street. I don't know if, we got shut down eventually for it, but there was like mold on the wall. It was just, man, it was as rugged as it can be. Fell in love with the place.
Mhm,
So December, I had my first exhibition bout, which doesn't qualify as a record, but it
mhm,
counts as a fight. And it
mhm,
was against my sparring partner, Mike, at the time.
mhm,
And we boxed in another basement up the street at Regency. That was fun. Then I get to my first real fight at Brampton Cup, which was in February of 2002, lose. And then I get to Brantford at Summer Hayes tournament and I lose. And I kept losing. I lost like
mhm,
8 straight. And I
mhm,
said, nah, this ain't it. So I stopped. And I'll never forget the day Vinny Ryan shows up at my house on unit number 5, Touro
mhm,
Crescent. And I'm hiding upstairs because I was scared of him. He's an Irish man. At the
mhm,
time, he was a lot more, he's getting there in age, right?
mhm.
His birthday's coming up tomorrow, actually.
Damn.
And it's his 82nd, I believe. And at the time, he's moving around pretty quickly. It's 20 years ago, right?
Yeah.
I was scared of him, man. So I hit upstairs and he comes over and knocks on the door and he tells my mom, "Where's Dana? Like, he's got to come back to boxing." I quit partially because we couldn't afford the $20 a month for me to
Mhm.
go to the gym. Imagine that. You spent that on ice cream for me today.
Yeah, that's pretty wild.
And partially also because I just wasn't good. I was like, we're wasting $20 on me when I'm not even a good boxer. So I get back to the gym and I remember Vinny telling me, watch this boxer. And it was actually Cubans because they were left-handed and I'm
Okay.
left-handed. We're southpaw.
Oh,
And
you're
he
a
said,
lefty. Okay.
watch Cubans fight.
Okay.
See how they move. See how they throw their punches. Focus on straight punches. And I remember I fell in love with a boxer named Mario Kindlin. And Mario Kindlin already won Olympic gold at that juncture. And I just watched a lot of his tapes. And then you couple in the factor that my best friend at boxing was Isho Shiba, who was just a phenomenal boxer. And we just train and box and spar in his basement. We'd spar at home. And I fell in love with the sport. The tournaments were where I met my friends. One of my oldest friends right now, Josh Cameron in Vancouver. Every time I go there, I stay with him. So imagine some of the friends that I've made through boxing. So that's when I really started caring about the sport because that was my community now.
Mhm.
No longer getting beat up. Whooped his butt, by the way. Eventually. So that's revenge, I call it.
Okay.
One day I showed up and I said, "Man, look, you don't want none of this heat." I didn't say that, but he went to swing.
Your hand said it.
I moved. Boom, boom.
Oh,
and
so he
done.
came at you not knowing that you were in the
Yeah,
gym.
no, well, nobody knew. And so
Oh, okay, okay.
I did a quick little move and I said, boom, boom, and then that was it. And then he left me alone. But pretty much. But yeah, so we yeah, it was a pretty cool 11, 12-year-old. But that felt really good. It was actually 14 years old when I actually started competing for like the national title, like getting to the finals, semifinals, whatever
Yeah,
it was. And
yeah.
I was consistently on the provincial team.
Mm.
And so at that point, I was, you'd consider yourself as one of the best in the country.
Mhm.
And that's where it kind of spurred. At 15 years old, we got to the Cadet C Junior National Championships, and
Mhm.
this was in Sarnia. And that was probably my best turnout ever. I stopped my first, opponent in the first round. And then I ended up eventually in the finals against a guy named Mario Crispo. Mario Crispo is oh my gosh, Arturo Gotti's nephew from
Yeah.
Montreal. And we had such a brilliant fight. I ended up winning the fight, and that was my first national championship. And that's when I felt like, okay, I was great. 2 more years would go by. I was junior, again, provincials, et cetera, et cetera. I'd always made it to nationals, but I wasn't never consistently on like the Olympic team or anything like that, right?
Yeah.
So football became my focus at about 18 years old. And then I wanted to only play football. I got bigger for football. I worked out for football. I trained for football. I focused on football. I wanted to go to the NFL. When that didn't happen, I said, all right, cool. I'm going to be a fighter pilot. When that didn't happen, I said, okay, cool. I'm going to be Tom Cruise pretending to be a fighter pilot. And then I got into acting. So that's how that's my life in a nutshell.
You wanted to be Maverick, and you said, all right, let me act like Maverick.
I wanted to be Maverick. I ended up becoming Goose.
That's crazy.
The wingman.
I'm dead. I just saw both of them for the first time like last month. So I'm brand new to Top Gun. I actually saw the second one first in theaters and then saw the first one. Yeah.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Okay, so the first 2 movies I watched in Canada, outside of Bollywood, obviously, Titanic and Top Gun. Both of those official posters are in my apartment. Now, something really cool for you is I watched Maverick, the newest one, and obviously enamored by it, love it, and I'm considering quitting acting to become a fighter pilot again.
Run it back.
Yeah. Circa 2008. But, Neon Lights releasing on Apple TV July 12th. And so I do this thing where I kind of just go on there just to see my face. But the first time I went on Apple TV, after I seen Maverick, I'm scrolling. I'm like, oh, darn, it's not showing up. So it comes to the coming soon section. Top Gun Maverick, Neon Lights.
That's nuts.
Man.
That's nuts. You screenshotted that for sure.
It's on my phone. Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
Like, had to.
I'm gonna print that and make it its own poster.
Oh my God, that's correct. Yeah, you can't top that. The next step is y'all on this poster together, but this is like the step right before that.
And you know what, man? You've heard me say this before, man, on our calls and stuff. I am such a firm believer of just manifestation. Your brain, like Stoicism, the only thing you control is your brain. Everything else in your thoughts, right? If it's not for anything, if you don't believe in manifestation, universe, whatever, if it's not for anything, it'll at least gear your productivity towards a goal. For me, it's to work with people like Tom Cruise, Jake Gyllenhaal, Hugh Jackman, to do plays and things of that sort. So I holistically believe I'll work with Tom Cruise. There's no doubt. I holistically believe I'll work with Jake Gyllenhaal. I holistically believe one day I'll win an Oscar. That's just my mentality, and that's what I work towards every day.
Now listen, we're speaking it, man. Yeah. Like, when we met, this was not happening in person at all. And I looked at a lot of studios before we came to this. And like you said when we walked in, this is basically perfect. So listen, all those things we speak into existence. And listen, one time we're gonna have this talk in front of a great live audience premiering one of your films. So listen.
And we'll do it right. We'll take this. It'll be in a big black truck, cool, shiny truck, and we'll do it in Los Angeles, where like one of the sides flip down.
Oh my God.
And people can see inside of a truck.
Lit.
Yeah, sponsored by Red Hill.
Let's go. Let's go. Titanic being one of your favorites, it's also one of my favorites too. First of all, my mom had the box set on VHS with the 2 tapes.
Yep.
I know a lot of people aren't even old enough for VHS or old enough for 2 tapes. So, that's a serious movie right there.
Yeah.
And then like, Titanic, and still to this day, I think it's underrated, honestly. I think it's an underrated movie to this day.
Titanic?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I think it's super underrated.
People are insane to me when they try to put any other movie in their top 10. If you haven't watched Titanic, you're just insane. It's my favorite movie of all time. And I'll tell you why. It's because it is timeless.
Timeless.
Although I feel like it has given me a falsified ideology of what love is supposed to be. Because every time I meet somebody, I'm like, if I don't die for them, I don't love them enough. Do you know what I mean?
If you don't want to draw me naked, then we're not even.
Yeah.
No, look, I'm gonna agree with you for 2 reasons.
Yeah.
One, them doing the little eyes at each other and all that, like that. When you saw that spark as a kid, you were just like, that's Sparky right there. Like, I'm really trying to.
I gotta be honest with you, man. I don't have Tinder. I don't have Bumble. I don't have Hinge. I don't have Grindr. I don't have Rhea. I mean, I don't know the difference between all of them, but I
you don't have the apps.
I don't have the apps, right?
Okay.
I mean, people call me out if they say I never DM them. Of course, I have. I mean,
That's
everybody's done that.
That's what Instagram's for.
Yeah, and I think I'm maybe even MySpace at one point, but
Throwback.
at this throwback, aging ourselves. But I will say, man, like I just that feeling of meeting somebody authentically in person, where you look at them and you acknowledge them, and
I'm leaving.
There's just no price for it.
I can't talk about this.
And you know what? I'll be honest with you. The last time that has happened to me, because it doesn't happen as frequently as it used to,
never basically.
I romanticize the F out of that entire dynamic of relationship, because I'm like, man, like the opportunity, because I find people now, especially now more than ever, Adriel, bro, like my life is changing and I'm finding this even more now than ever. People go Google you right away because they want to know who you are.
Yep.
They want to know your criminal record. Mine's too long. But it's just not as authentic. You don't meet somebody and your judgment or the foundation of your relationship starts at hello. It's starting at that digital photo or that Instagram thing or whatever have you. And it's sad to me because Titanic.
And I'll tell you this, man, like this is obviously a great problem to have, but you're definitely getting to that point now where the second someone Googles you, like when I was on the apps when I was in school, I was telling people I was a student.
Right.
I wasn't telling no one what my program was, that I hosted a radio show.
Right.
And I was in school. I was like, listen, if you get far enough in the process, I'll find you're past that point. You just got to say my name's Dana. Like I can't tell you my last name yet. If you can just Google Dana and see what comes up.
Honestly, in so many ways, I'm so grateful because you get into film and television or entertainment in general, and it's when you're in entertainment, just like yourself. You do it for an audience base. So that means the audience will grow and people will start acknowledging who you are, right? The person is the product.
Yeah.
So I've always wanted to kind of differentiate myself from the person, the product, because the person, the product, so different. People, introverted human, outroverted product, right? But I am starting to notice things. For instance, like this is something that cool to me. I was at the gym yesterday and I saw a mom and a daughter walk by. And they didn't see me look towards him, but they turned around and the mom was like, "Oh, that's him." And my song, ironically, at the exact same moment was shifting. And I could hear her say that, and then her daughter look, and I pretend like I didn't see anything because that's cool. I was like, "Oh, yeah, you're dating Abraham. It's all good. And it's gonna happen more often." But it's the first for me yesterday, and
that's huge.
That's cool.
That's huge.
It's a cool feeling. But having said that, though, it's really important for me to emphasize that I am so different from Dana, who's the human being. Like, honestly, man, like we've spoken on and off for pretty much a year, right? Virtually. I'm just like as normal as I can probably be. I'm a community focused person, and I don't really love film and television as much for personal gain as it is for creating jobs, opportunities, and just to be able to tell stories. Whatever comes with that is just such a bonus. But yeah, this world is ever shifting, and I'm not able to keep up with it. Like I don't have TikTok either. I did it for a stint. I was cool at dance because I was like, oh, this is gonna be cool for me to share dance videos. Yeah. But then I saw people go like, and then like,
and you said nah.
And I was like, what is that? It's just it's
a lot.
Sick.
It's
but,
a lot.
And to each their own, man. But yeah, I mean, it's hard to go back to it though. It's hard to meet the love of your life when it's all digital, I think.
I think you made a great point about fantasizing meeting someone in person because, and listen, all my people know who I'm talking about with this person. This person was like, I was a simp for this person beyond belief. Like, if they raise their voice at me, I'd be like, thank you for even breathing the same air as me. Like, that's kind of how I was with them. Yeah. And I met this person in person, and like, here's the thing, to a point where I think we're right. It's a different relationship meeting someone in person. Yeah. It just feels more authentic,
Well, for sure, man.
And
for sure.
Like it's something that's like gone so hard to find at this point. And then the other thing I think about Titanic as well is that we take for granted like the actual scenery of that movie. Like you feel like you were on that boat. Like only at the end when they're like it's sinking and they give you that huge wide shot of the boat going down, then you realize, oh, it's a movie. But the whole time, it feels like you're on that boat and it's going down with you. And I think that because, again, it's been over what 20 years now,
Yeah,
almost
well
30
over, almost
years,
30. Yeah.
almost 30 years now.
Yeah.
That it's like really that's something we're used
Imagine
to.
they were
We've
doing that in
seen
'97. James Cameron, shout out, man. Niagara
like
region person, right
no
near the hood.
go
Yeah.
go, and it's
Yeah.
like that's something that like barely any movies have done since then. You know, it's hard
The
for a movie
scope is so
to kind of
hard.
like engulf you in that same way. Like
Well, so if you look at the magnitude, Tom Cruise has been known since his stardom,
mhm,
early '90s,
mhm,
to always just blow budgets out of the water, literally metaphorically, right?
yeah,
Like he is Tom Cruise. He, I think, is the biggest name in the world,
mhm,
authentically. Fine, Dwayne Johnson has a lot of followers. I don't care about that crap.
mhm.
James Cameron, what he did with Titanic, is comparable to Top Gun, because Top Gun, you were using jets, multi-million-dollar
Top Gun
jets,
is the same
aerial.
thing. You're like it feels like you're in the Air Force. Even when I watched the first one,
Yeah.
after watching the second
It
one,
was always like, bro.
I understood it then because the second one I was like, this is like a weird little circle jerk. I don't get why this is so big.
Yeah.
I watched the first one. I was like, okay, it feels like I'm in the Air Force.
That's the
I
authenticity.
want to go. I want to go put that shirt on. Like
That's the authenticity, man. I sincerely wanted to be a fighter pilot. In 2010, I filled out paperwork, got my reference letters,
Yeah.
applied. Like I literally wanted to be a fighter pilot. At the time, I was at Queens and thinking about doing a joint program at Royal Military College. Thank God I didn't, because honestly, I didn't have it in me to even do that. What they do is just so far beyond
Different level.
civilian knowledge and capabilities. But having said that, you're right, man. James Cameron, what he did with Titanic is unfathomable, because now as a filmmaker, understanding even the budgets and the scopes and the capacity to execute something like that, of that magnitude, and make
Yeah.
it feel like we are on a boat.
That's the
People are
difference.
drowning and they're fighting to open those doors. And I've watched it over 40 times at this point in my life, and I feel the exact same emotions rush through me as I did the first or second time. And that to me is timeless, and that's why those two movies are both still my favorite. And I love Maverick, but the original Top Gun is still the original Top Gun.
Nah, I agree with you in that sense. Like a series I think of is Fast and Furious series.
Yeah.
And like at a certain point, it was just like, all right, this ain't got nothing to do with nothing.
Yeah, it was after Tokyo Drift. Sorry, Vin Diesel.
Those are shots.
I'd love to be in one of the franchise movies.
Those are shots.
Yeah, hey, I'll do it. If they call me like, hey, Dana, we want you in Fast and Furious 12.
All they want you to do is speak under your breath and have those cars fly or do tricks. Because, and this is what I say is the difference, because you never felt like you were like in the car part of those stunts. They were cool to see, but you didn't feel like this is me doing this stunt now, you know? And that's a whole different ball game.
For sure.
You've never talked about this in depth, this experience. On New Year's Eve, going to LA, is that correct?
Yep.
New Year's Eve going to LA?
Yeah.
Like talk about just, I guess, your thought process, like leading up to thinking this is a good idea. I'm gonna go do this. Like
you said, you were a terrible idea, but
you were interested in acting and stuff before, but
yeah,
just the the presence of mind to be like, all right, I'm gonna go and do this.
Well, just a year before, for the first ever okay, so to give you a time lapse, women have been the catalyst to so much of my behavior. Started with my mom and my sisters, and then it became my romantic relationships. For whatever the reasons are, women are the catalyst towards my next step. They either break me to the point where I need something different, or they inspire me to go do something different. So this time was no different, man. Unfortunately and fortunately. I broke up with a girl that I was in love with. And just so we're clear, again, because of Titanic, every time I meet a girl, I fall deeply in love,
Listen,
I'm like
this
Rose.
This show is one of those stories.
Yeah.
Break up with a girl, this show is one of those stories.
Perfect. So I'm on the right show then.
Yeah.
It feels right.
We're speaking the same language. And this is a girl I met in person as well.
That's what I mean.
This is,
So for me,
exactly.
It's women. They're the catalyst. And as a kid, it's because you want them to like you. As an adult, it's because you want to fall in love and you want to have a family, like all that stuff, right? But in this particular moment, I had broken up with the girlfriend that I was dating, and you know what, man? It was a messy breakup. It wasn't. One day when I write a book, I'll talk about it. And I was in my mom's basement, just hiding in Hamilton again. And I had really bad social anxiety. My short film talks about it, and that's what really launched me in the right direction, right? But before I made the short film, I hadn't addressed my social anxiety yet.
Mhm.
So the previous year to go in LA, I booked a flight. I go to New York City. I'm visiting my eldest sister, and I go to a strip club by myself, and I meet one of my really good friends to this day, Tony Williams,
Mhm.
who's an executive producer, one of the executive producers on Neon Lights. And then I go out and blah, 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 blah. I end up in Egypt. Long story short, I end up in Egypt to find my treasure, like Will Smith was talking about on Oprah.
Mhm.
Now, once I get back from Egypt, I realize acting's my thing. I take it up and I'm in studios, all the different places in Toronto, try out as every studio that I can. I don't find one that works for me. Mainly because they kept saying I'm not good. Also because I felt like they weren't seeing something that I was feeling inside, but I
Mhm.
didn't know what it was. I mean, look, technically, I wasn't a sound actor. Of course not. I started at 23 years old,
Yeah.
but I knew I loved it. So I read and I read and I read. I read Meisner, and then I read Michael Shurtleff's audition, and they kept talking about Robert De Niro and blah blah blah.
Mhm.
Then I read Lee Strasberg, A Dream of Passion, Development of Method Techniques.
Serious.
And at that point, I realized this is for me. It's
Mhm.
cerebral. It's a construct. It's not just, if you've heard of Meisner, there's this exercise called repeat. So
Mhm.
you say one word, I say it back, and we just go back and forth until we start feeling it differently, and things change and things happen. Well, I don't know, man. That's
Mhm.
not really me at the time, and I felt like I needed technique. So method worked for me, and so I was like, okay, well, who does Will train with? I found a video on YouTube, really old. Will and Aaron Spicer were giving a speech or like a talk, very similar to
Mhm.
this, to students. I said, Aaron Spicer. Okay, so I started looking him up. And that summer, when I started looking him up, they were actually in Toronto shooting Suicide Squad.
Oh,
Aaron was
jeez.
right next to Will. I saw a video, and then I watched that video, and I said, okay, I got to train with this guy. They're always together. They've been together since Fresh
Mhm.
Prince of Bel-Air. LL Cool J introduced Will to Aaron. Aaron trained Will, and boom. So I emailed Aaron Spicer. You had to audition to get in there at the time, or you had to show a demo reel. Now I didn't have either, and I'd be wasting his time auditioning because I wasn't strong
Mhm.
enough or technically strong enough. Anyway, he said, "Come on down." Signed up.
Wow.
December 31st, 2015. Packed up my Chrysler 300. Um, I went and I had a plan to go stay with my friend Ramon Pole, who
Mhm.
I've met through mutual friends. He was living in LA. He was a personal trainer at Gold's in Hollywood. Imagine
Okay.
how cool this stuff is for like a kid, right? Like your dream is to be an actor. Your friend works at Gold's in Hollywood,
Crazy.
and you're gonna go pack your car and you're gonna do a, 3-day drive. I packed my car. My mom actually helped me, and I set off my way. It's 6 a.m. Thursday morning. And as midnight was striking, time was going backwards, going west. So I
Mhm.
would see fireworks off of the truck stops
Oh,
for the
shit.
truckers that are on the road. So I'd see fireworks and I'd go to the next, truck stop area and there'd be another fireworks. 'Cause, time was going backwards.
Damn.
And it was just the coolest, surreal feeling. And I got there exactly at midnight Saturday morning,
Damn.
Thursday, 6 a.m., midnight Saturday morning. We had hookah. And then the following week, I started acting classes. Haven't looked
Damn.
back since.
That is crazy. That's just that's like it's a real story just in the way that you found your way there. Because I feel like there's a lot of people like now I was blessed to kind of know what I wanted to do for a long time, but for people who are trying to figure out what they want to do, I feel like they don't even know how to start figuring out what they want to do. You know what I mean? And even you having the presence of mind to, go to Egypt or even think about, okay, what am I actually trying to do here?
Yeah.
And then even like after you said you were bad at acting, like to keep going, like I'll say this, like for someone I've done like a few audition tapes. I'm not
Yeah.
deep in this game like you are.
Mhm.
But even the few audition, I see my own audition tapes and I'm like, oh, horrible.
Same.
But for someone,
Yeah.
for someone
Yeah.
to tell you on top of it, something
Yeah.
for them to tell you on top of
Yeah,
it,
yeah,
like
yeah.
you're acting it, and it's like again, you're focused, you're in the zone, you think,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
And someone's like, that was actually horrible. And that's very different from someone online saying, oh, I hated that movie or whatever it
For
is,
sure.
and to push through that, like obviously that you didn't obviously just get big after you decided to push through that. But I
No.
think that early part is like speaks volumes to the character
It,
and what
it,
you
it
wanted
does
to
come
do.
back to your earlier question about boxing. So
Mhm.
boxing, I'm just used to losing at the start,
Mhm.
right? 8 fights, life, started in poverty, homeless shelters,
Mhm.
food banks. We fought through that. Boxing, losing so much nonstop. So you develop a pedigree of discipline and resiliency and perseverance. So I mean, if it was easy, man, everybody be doing it. And
Facts.
my story, as much as I appreciate being here with you, and as much as I appreciate going on interviews and this press tour, I don't necessarily feel that my story is that different
Mhm.
from others who are also successful. We were talking about, defiant ones, Jay-Z and Jimmy Iovine. I mean, Jay-Z, or sorry, Dr.
Dre.
Dre. I apologize. Jay-Z and I have the same birthday. Dr. Dre is just a legend. Sorry. Jimmy Iovine and Dre, and nobody wanted the Chronic album.
Crazy.
And just happens this up and coming company, Interscope, picks it up. They see something different. So we all go through struggle. The only difference between the ones that come out on the other side, where we then idolize them and we're like,
Mhm.
man, they're billionaires or this, and for us to get there, it's impossible. The only thing that's impossible is our drive and work ethic.
Yeah.
It's not that we're enabled, we just can't do it. That's not impossible. It's just the possibilities, the potential has to be there for you to just work through the toughest of times. And this is where I think it's so important to have the right people around you, because there's gonna be times where you want to quit. Because I want to quit pretty much every day.
Mhm.
I woke up this morning, I want to
Mhm.
quit. When I hit traffic, I was like, I want to quit this podcast. You know what I mean? I just want to quit life like so many times. And
Right now.
that's on a metaphorical level.
Mhm.
And on a literal level. By literal, I mean suffered depression so severely that I've thought about quitting life
Mhm.
many, many, many times over the past, 30, from the moment I understood what suicide was,
Mhm.
from that point forward. And it's just, you have to have the right people around you to remind you how special you are and just keep powering through. For me, it's my business partners,
Mhm.
my best friends, my family, this moment right here.
Mhm.
Because you remember, okay, you're doing okay. You're on the right track.
Yeah.
You just keep at it.
Yeah, I think that like level of consistency as well, is part of it, because the consistency is what creates greatness. I always say this, like
100%.
Kobe was Kobe not because he could score 81 points, but because he could score 30 every day. You know, the 181 isn't what made him him. It's
Steph
because it's
Curry.
every
Yeah.
day.
All of those
It's
guys.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's the
Consistency.
everyday consistency. So I think like that's a great message you're giving to us, and just in the sense that keep pushing, get used to things not going well at first.
For
Because
sure.
I like for a lot of people around me, I can see that being like a barrier. You know, one thing that I always prided myself on is like trying something new, putting my foot in,
For
like
sure.
getting into it. Now I do another podcast called Album Mode. We just celebrated 100 episodes.
Wow, man. Congratulations.
And we like we basically forgot that we were at 100 episodes, and we had like a little talk about everything we've done to get to that point, like
Wow.
creating the album art. There's a folder from like 4 months before the pod even started.
Wow.
That's just 40 different fonts. Trying to
Wow.
find the right font that we liked. And it's like those things that it's like, am I really at 1 a.m. looking at fonts? But
That's what
you
it takes.
and you got to kind of find a way to enjoy those things.
For
So
sure.
I love that you're putting that message, because we really value that here
Yeah.
on the
And,
Cool
I'll
Table.
be honest, man. We're just not that different. None of us are
Mhm.
different. You and I are not that different. When we step out on that street, we're not that different than other people around us. The barriers that exist in society are man-made. They're not internal. You know what I mean? And
Mm.
so we do have to power through every adversity, because we all go through it. But it always has to start with loving. Somebody, the last couple of magazines and interview, they said, if you could give any advice to somebody who wants to do the same thing as you, what would you say? I'd always say go create your own content. But I was looking at it wrong,
Mm.
because going out, that's such an easy, I think that's a cheap way of me just saying, like, just if I could do it, you could do it too. But
Yeah.
that's not true, because I got to meet somebody who was able to get me the funding, et cetera. We're meeting different people.
Yeah.
I think where it really starts loving yourself.
Especially
Everything
yourself.
starts with loving yourself, because the foundation of everything that's going to be coming outwardly
Mhm.
starts with you. And if you can't love yourself, you're never going to power through the toughest of times. I'm only learning that
Mhm.
now, 3 movies deep and a company on the way. And imagine I had that mentality, 3 years ago, how much more productive I could have been, and not fleeting away time and
Yo,
moments and energy on the more hurtful and challenging things in life.
it's huge.
It really starts with yourself and
Yeah.
loving yourself, for sure.
I want to ask about a time before Prisoner of Fear. But what you said about it done with yourself, I want us to like just end that in
Yeah.
this way.
Yeah.
It's about how you view yourself as well. And I had to
Sure.
realize that, like, again, very recently, even after doing this for so long, because I just graduated from university, And I thought about the only reason I graduated is because I never saw myself not graduating. I
Absolutely.
was working 2 jobs in school. I was doing this. I was freelance writing. Like
It's a
I was
grind.
I was never like a school or die type of person. I would never call myself that.
Mhm.
But I never saw myself dropping out. That is like I thought of the worst option possible and wasn't dropping out. It was
Right.
maybe doing an extra semester.
Right.
And in that sense, because I just looked at myself in that way, I graduated.
Absolutely.
But I wasn't actively the best student in a sense. And so how you look at yourself, I think, is really important in terms of what you're going to achieve and even how you're going to behave. And that's why I wanted to talk about Prisoner of Fear, because there was a time before Prisoner of Fear where it was a little muddy.
Oh,
It was
man.
a little muddy.
Yeah.
Where was your mind at, during that time? Because I focus on this because in your field, it's people telling you no directly.
All the time.
Like it's not just a, oh, I didn't hear back, or oh, I didn't make the cut this time. It's a no, fam. We don't want this. We
We
don't
don't
want
want
you
you.
for
You're not
this.
good enough. Yeah. You're
Yeah.
not good enough.
Like,
Yep.
what was your mind at during that time before Prisoner of Fear was
So
created?
I'll tell you something. I still get a lot of no's.
Mhm.
There's a theory of the third door. So there's people that get an opportunity and they walk through the door. There's people that are born into it, they walk through the door, and there's people that just have to create the opportunity.
Mhm.
I'm a firm believer you have to create your own opportunity. Whether you are Jake Gyllenhaal, who recently launched 9 stories to tell the stories he clearly wants to tell that he
Mhm.
hasn't been able to in his prolific career, or you're Dana Abraham, who starts off that way.
Mhm.
2017, I apologize. 2016, I came back from Los Angeles. At this point, I needed a manager or an agent, anything that would just give me an opportunity to audition, right? I felt like I was trained. I felt like I was good enough.
Yeah.
So at that point, I bribed my way into a TIFF event
Okay.
and I met my first agent there. And we signed pretty much a couple weeks later, and we spent pretty much all of the last bit of 2016. Actually, it's funny because I just saw a comment on my last post on Instagram, a makeup artist from a Sleep Country commercial.
Jeez.
So she was on the first ever thing I ever did that was, that you're paid for, which
Yeah, yeah.
that's where you really start to
Yeah,
be
yeah, yeah.
professional. And then to commercial. And then, so she's seeing me 5.5,
Yeah.
6 years later.
That's crazy.
So 2017, I just did commercials. I was on
Mhm.
everything. Proline. I was on Taco Bell. I was
Okay.
on everything. And I just wasn't really getting acting gigs, like real ones, like
Yeah,
theatrical
yeah,
things,
yeah.
principal roles, whatever, any role.
Mm.
At one point, I got this really small series that ended up becoming a web series called
Mm.
Bedtime Stories for Men. That was my first 10. Did an episode as a guest star, and that was so cool to me, man. Dress up as a cop, be funny,
Mhm.
see the entire movement of what an episode looks like. And then it's addicting because this is all I've ever wanted. And now I got to taste it, and I'm like, yes,
Yes.
this is what I want to do. So at that point, I said, I don't want to do commercials anymore after I got to do that.
Mhm.
Now, Aladdin happened. So Guy Ritchie posts out, and they're doing a global search for Aladdin. At that point, I'm like learning to sing, I'm learning to dance, I'm wanting to
Mhm.
audition. And when that doesn't pan out for me, I let go of my agents. I said, I'm just gonna focus, I'm gonna create my own work. Because how long am I gonna audition? I'm at this point, I'm like 26 going on
Mhm.
27. I was like, man, like how long am I gonna audition?
Mhm.
Again, fortunately, I had a friend, he had some money, and about in April of that year, while the Aladdin thing was going on, we made Prisoner of Fear, short film. One of my really close friends from Los Angeles, Mark Rodriguez, stars in it. Brilliant performer. I met him at Spicer Sturgis in LA. Still to this day, he's one of my close friends. He's hosting the QA panel in Los Angeles screening on July
Oh,
10th.
that's
That's how
what's
close
up.
we are. When I go, I live at his place.
Mhm.
Most of my friends come through Mark, like in LA, and
Yeah.
he's such a great person in my life. So he stars and I direct. I play a small role across from him. Now, this film, for 2 years, just bounced around festival to festival. Johannesburg, Africa Rising, New York Latino Film Festival by HBO in New York, Los Angeles screening, Toronto screening, this screening, that. And people are just starting to contact me.
Mhm.
While I was doing that, I was working in a place called Early Mercy on King Street West. And there was a regular. I hate to put him out like this, but he was a regular. Every Friday he'd come in and get bottle service, him and his friends. And they're such good people, man. They give me drinks and we just hang out. And zero expectations and vice versa. As long as, I took care of the table, they were kind to me and vice versa, right? As long as they didn't, act foolish, like I love them too. November 2018, we win Best Cinematography and we were runner-up. That was stupid. We should have won that entire challenge. But anyway, we were runner-up. I'm resentful, can you tell? But we were runner-up at this showcase in Detroit.
Mm-hmm.
We were the first Canadian film they ever had. And I post a picture with the award, the Best Cinematography, not the runner-up one. And Kamar Qureshi DMs me and we start talking back and forth. I'm like, I got to get you involved. Like, I have movies, blah, blah, blah. I knew he's wealthy. I knew he was doing the right things. And so December 6th of 2018, we sat down together at Cactus Club. I showed him my pitch deck on El Tigre, and he showed me what he's working on, new company. January 26th of 2019, we sit back together again the following year, like a month later or so. And I'll never forget what he had said to me. I love what you're doing. You're going to go do your own thing. You have this pedigree. You have this work ethic. You're going to, the theory of the third door, right?
Yeah.
Kamar's very well read. He understands the exact same ideologies. And he said to me, look, it's going to be very hard for me to get investors invested into you per movie. But if you can bring me a company, take all the scripts that you've written, couple it together, add in the benefits, the tax credit, and all the different things you told me about the advantages of shooting in Hamilton and making film in Canada, bring me a company. He's like, I can put that in front of investors. He's like, I'm going into venture capital next. And that's where Red Hill comes from. So that short film led to, inadvertently, Red Hill.
So Prisoner of Fear was kind of the catalyst that started all that.
Well, it was a girl first, and then no, I'm kidding. No, but yeah,
give Shorty credit.
Yeah. But it's absolutely, because without Prisoner of Fear, I would have never understood, even on a small magnitude, how to make a project, couple in wardrobe, design, funds,
everything,
all that stuff. So on a really small control level, I got to understand what it meant to produce on a larger scope. And then it just, once Red Hill launched, we did Maternal, then backed up to the pandemic hit, then we did Neon Lights during the pandemic, 100 Lives during the pandemic, and now we're on our 4th and 5th. So you got to start somewhere, but you have to integrate in vertical progression. How do you grow? How do you get bigger? How do you, and it's challenging. People are going to say no. And after I've seen Jimmy Iovine get like torn down, now I'm like, they said no to that guy.
Yeah, no, and nobody know what they talking about, man.
I can't dwindle when people say no to me. In fact, why should they say yes in the first place? I haven't proven anything. I haven't done anything. I haven't won an Oscar or anything like that. So even if you do, you're going to have challenges. So
I feel like no can't be enough. That's what I say. I saw this YouTube video. I wish I could remember who it was. But they were asking someone about like their past. They wanted to be a boxer. And this person didn't become a boxer. And they asked them, they're like, that's crazy. Well, you drank that too? You're a menace. You're a menace. And he wanted to become a boxer. And he asked him, like, how come you never became a boxer? Like, it's what you wanted to do. Like, you were so in love with it. What happened? And the guy didn't have an answer. And he's like, did you like break your leg? Like, did you suffer like a concussion? Like, and he just had no reason.
Yeah.
And it was like so many things in life people treat like that. Like, there's no like real reason. And it's like your want to you think your want is at this level. So let's let everything match that level, and then you should be happy with the result.
Yeah, and it's, I gotta say, man, it really comes down to the people you surround yourself with. Bottom line, my mom's been right about everything in life. There's seldom anything that she's wrong about. I think we should just give credit to our parents more often than not, because even if they're difficult and challenging, I mean, at least mine, I've been very fortunate to have the mother that I have, even if she didn't agree with the choices we made. And believe me, I've made so many wrong decisions along the way, and just so supportive. And the one thing she'd always say is the people you keep around you are going to be the determination of who you become one day. Imagine if you, so here, let me paint you a picture, okay? So I grew up in Royal Crescent around drug dealers. What do you think I was going to become?
Drug dealer.
For sure. Then you surround yourself with boxers that are just brilliant and they're great at it. What do you think is going to happen? You're going to push yourself.
Yeah.
Then you get to university, etc., and so on and so forth. Then eventually you want to become an actress. You go to LA, the best studio probably hands down in Los Angeles, and Karen Fukuhara sitting right next to me. Right, Katana on Suicide Squad. Now she's on The Boys. She you're just surrounded by greatness.
Talent.
My headshot's up right next to Shannon, and then there's LL Cool J, and then there's Will Smith. Like, So in your mind, you're like, okay, if I'm good enough to be on that wall, I want to be good enough to be on every wall with the best of the best of the best,
Yeah.
period. Then you couple in the fact that now you have an office on the 16th floor in
Mhm.
TD South Tower, and it's a venture firm that's there as well. People that are shape-shifting technology, ed
Mhm.
tech, med tech, or real estate.
Mhm.
People that are just changing and innovating. What do you think you're going to start doing? You're
Innovating.
going to start thinking more than just a filmmaker now.
Yeah.
Making films isn't enough. How do we make meaningful films? How do we make films that just strike the audience? You're going to want to be the best. Even Saturday, my friend Stag, this guy, he had a full dad bod going on, and we're
Mhm.
talking. I'm like, man, like your body's insane now. He's always been a fit dude, but he
Mhm.
lost his way a little bit. And today, he was just telling me, just walk 45 minutes a day. Like, you're already working out like crazy.
Yeah.
Just give me some little bits of information. Past 2 days, what do you think I've been doing? Getting up at 5 in the morning. Me
Mhm.
and my dog just go for that 45-minute walk. Like, imagine, for most people, 45-minute walk is difficult, but with my
Mhm.
dog, it feels like 10 minutes because
Easy.
she's
Yeah.
running faster than me.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So the people you have around you are going to determine what you start doing, and that exercise of activities is going to
Mhm.
lead to an outcome. So again, I'm reading the book called The Daily Stoic. So 366 passages. You read one a day and you meditate on it for 10, 15 minutes right
Mhm.
after. Every single page I've read so far since the beginning of this book has always come down to choices. Understanding what you're limited on.
Mhm.
You can't control people, can't control certain outcomes, can't control your body against disease,
Yeah.
can't control your body against pimples. You can't control, a lot of things. I
Yeah.
stress out, but we were talking
Yeah.
about, but you can control your perspective and you can control minute details.
Mhm.
But those details over time do add up. And man, I fought so hard to control everything around me,
Mhm.
and it doesn't work. And now I'm just getting better at walking away and embracing what is working.
Man, honestly, you're like taking the show in the direction it's going in because we have a question, top 5, which we're not gonna get to yet because we got to talk about neon
Yeah.
lights quickly. But listen, you're basically taking my job. You're taking some direction that we're ready to go in.
Energy.
Talking to people right now, 100%,
Yeah.
100%.
Flowing. Yeah.
Neon lights, man. I feel like the story of that movie is an interesting one, but this on a personal level, I'm more asking about you and the space that you had to put yourself in to play that role. Because that's what anytime I see the trailer or clips or the poster, I'm just like, I wonder where his mind was at when he was really preparing for that.
Right.
So where was your mind at? Obviously, you knew what the script was and
Right.
the movie was about, but in actually shooting those scenes, like,
Yeah.
where did you go to kind of put yourself there?
Well, so I'll say this. I'm acting right now, and I wasn't acting then.
I hope everyone got that. That's
Well, when they watch it, they will.
Oh my God.
Okay, so I've always firmly believed. So one of my favorite, I guess it's not a self quote, but it's something that I derived from Dark Knight. Like, I'm a diehard Dark Knight fan. I love Joker. So when I watched that role in 2008, that's when I was like, wow, that's what would it be like to act in something like that, And then he passed away, and everybody said that role got to him. And whatever the truth of the matter is, undeniably, one of the best performances ever.
For sure.
I still think, look, Joaquin Phoenix's Joker is incredible, deserving of a sequel, but still, man.
No, not with Heath.
So I've always wanted to do something like Heath, okay? So when the pandemic hit, let me walk you through how Neon Lights even came to be. So we did Maternal with Amy Beth McNulty from Man with an E, and she has a stint on Stranger Things, Colin Feore, Bond Cop, Bad Cop, Athena Kirkanis from Manifest, Chris Holdenby from Umbrella Academy, so on and so forth. I got to play a small role, which I had to audition for. So imagine, I'm producing a movie, we go raise the money, my production company's honing it, and I had to audition for a 5-liner.
Wow.
Process. It's not easy, man.
Yeah.
Fair enough. I haven't done anything before that, so I understand it. And when the movie was done, it was so challenging to do. Politics, people, funding, just you name it. If it could go wrong, it went wrong. Coupling that in with March 2020, the pandemic hits. Now I can't even go do something else. My mind was just not right, man. I thought about quitting acting. I thought about quitting everything. I just, like, I was about to lose my apartment, everything. We all understand that feeling.
Yeah.
Everybody's been there. And at that moment, I met Ruse Bey on Zoom call. It was to actually edit Maternal. He was the editor at the time. He's directed a movie, but nothing in North America. He's edited everything from Worst Behavior to Start from the Bottom. He's worked with all musicians in Toronto, Director X, you name it. After our initial call, we got onto another call. We started talking about the projects, and we just talked about how badly we want to work with each other. We just vibe, very, very,
Yeah.
very similar to this, right? There's a kinetic energy there, and so July comes around, the world starts opening. June comes around, the world starts opening up, and we're talking about back and forth about what we should do next. And I said, "Man, we do have a script. Maybe we can condense it, distill it, and make neon lights." As that's happening, I'm like, I'm gonna make this character as challenging as I possibly can because I don't know when my next opportunity is gonna be. And I want to, if you ever want to know if I can act, I want you to be able to see that in the first ever movie that I led. And so I just really started creating the character in July of 2020. It took me about 4 months. I lost 20 pounds, grew up my own beard. I would go eat at restaurants as they were opening up by myself. And I'd journal how I was feeling while I was doing it. And I created everything from how he would feel. Again, it came back to method. It came back to everything I've learned at Spies of Sturgis. There's sheets of papers of questions you ask yourself. And you develop the character and you leave nothing up for grabs. Like, how many times has this character had sex? And it's such an important question because we know that about ourselves. So why wouldn't we know that about our character? I just created the most minute detail about Clay. So I understood him inside and out. To the point of why his hands were clenched, A lot of people are like, is that nervous energy? Of course, sure. Possibly. Something went wrong with Clay. Nervous energy.
Perfect timing.
And so, is it because he had nervous energy? He writes algorithms. So it's protection of his fingers. You know what I mean? It's just he keeps his hands in a fist.
All that matters.
It's his minute way of protecting himself from the outside world. People ask, and this is actually exclusive habits I haven't shared with anybody else. People were like, "Well, how come he doesn't make eye contact?" With in the trailer, like, well, it's not because he's just a weird guy. He doesn't make eye contact because he feels like it's disrespectful. So he tries to keep his gaze down and low. And so we worked out every fine detail, Ruzbe and I, on Clay. And one day I was doing rehearsal with him virtually, and I did it with Brenna Coates, Kim's daughter, and I did a little bit with Kim as well. And one day when I did the virtual thing, Ruzbe was like, "Oh, that's him." And I was like, after I finished, I remember I was sweating on a virtual thing. I was sweating and crying, like literally. And I was like, yeah, that felt real. And that's what I went through to create him.
Damn. So you really went there. Cause
I had to.
Cause that's the thing, like thinking about a role like that. And I think about this a lot with kid actors as well.
Yeah.
Like when kid actors play some roles, I was like, it's hard to be like an actual kid in acting just because you're around so many grown-ups.
Sure.
But once you play certain roles, it's like you can't be a kid no more,
And that's the thing, man. And hey, Drill, like think about this way, man. I like to bank life one moment at a time, right? So if that's the case, okay, so I have vision and aspirations. We all do.
Yeah.
But what if it doesn't go to the next one?
Yeah.
So I had to bank on this one being the hit for me. Yeah. Then right after, so I did that role, the most difficult, daunting, challenging character ever. Then we follow that with 100 Lies with like people like Rob Racco from Riverdale, Umberly Gonzalez from Ginny Georgia, Stephen Tracy, Good Sam, Michael Xavier, Northern Red, and then Brandon McKnight from The Flash, Jessica Emily Heartland. So I'm like, okay, now I can play something different. Now I can, you got to see me as a nerdy, crazy, person who's trying to make it as a tech tycoon. Let's try to go for something a little bit more tangible, something more sexy, something more appealing. So I put on 25 pounds. I got as ripped as I could, work with a trainer, and I had buzz, short hair. I think that's when we started talking. And I got to be shirtless, doing cocaine off girls, and just partying and drinking and dancing and blah, 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 blah. And so I just think you gotta always challenge yourself in characters and play something that the world hasn't seen. And I think I'll probably quit acting and just produce and direct once I feel like I've done every role.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
I don't. It's like you said, the kid actor. So I'm a kid right now. I feel in acting, and then eventually, once I do certain amounts of things that I just feel like I'm not challenging myself anymore, then what's really the point?
And I feel like to me, the challenge is part of even watching as a viewer. I don't think a viewer ever wants to watch an actor do something and be like, give me a couple of weeks, I could do that. You don't want to watch, and then as well, like. There's certain we said this for Titanic, but this goes for like any movie. Like you want to watch a movie and not feel like you're watching a movie.
For sure.
You know, you want to
Yeah,
feel like I'm actually just getting a look into this person's life, into this
absolutely.
person's mind. And then as well, like even past the like 90 minutes of the movie, to think about like all the answers you have for like how much time she's had sex, what kind of person he is, how's he
For sure.
feeling. Like those are questions that we ask about characters who have had one movie 30, 20 years ago. And we're still like, I wonder how Uncle Phil felt about this, or you know, and
100%.
it's like that's the kind of thought that goes into some of these
Timeless.
characters.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you know, I feel
Yeah.
like that's kind of what a character is supposed to be, having all those facets where you
For
could be
sure.
like, I wonder how they would deal with the pandemic. You know, like I wonder with shit like that. So
Fair. Yeah.
yeah, huge. You already got to this, so this one we can do quicker.
Hmm.
We can get your people, but they say the top 5 people in your life
Yeah.
help you be who you are, help make you who you are.
For
Now
sure.
your top 5 can be a 2 or it could be a 10, but who are the top 5 people in your life who
Definitely.
help you be you?
Well, you know what? We did touch on it, but even for more clarity, it has to. So on a personal level,
Mm-hmm.
it's my mother, obviously the
Mm-hmm.
biggest inspiration I have. My sisters are all my best friends. My younger one, Hanifa, we're really close.
Mm-hmm.
So she's going into neuroscience at McGill, working with one of the best neurosurgeons in the world. She inspires me every day because I just
Mm-hmm.
feel like she's so intelligent. She'll turn what we regard to as muddy
Mm-hmm.
into concrete. She's just so
Wow.
founded on who she is and deeply
Mm-hmm.
rooted in her perspectives. Um, from there, it's obviously my business partner Kamar.
Mm-hmm.
Um, my other business partner now, Ruzbe is my creative partner,
Mm-hmm.
brother. You know, we always had this thing we say to each other like, "I want to be buried next to you," because like I just and in the afterlife and the life after that, we just want to keep making movies together. Just
Mm-hmm.
our souls to be connected. Jazz Brar, my business partner. Um, from there, it's my best friends, Paul and Ed. Like I pretty much spend most of my weekends with them, and I
Mm-hmm.
feel like a pretty normal guy around them. They,
Mm-hmm.
they've seen me cry and they've seen me get excited about things. A lot of the things that most people won't see me do will probably be with Paul and Ed.
Okay.
And then outside of that, it's my community. There's
Mm-hmm.
so many people. If we sat here and I started listing, because I'm forever indebted by so many different people that have
Mm-hmm.
paid a lending hand to who I became. My football coach, Ken Looker, who I lived with, my
Mm-hmm.
boxing coach, Vinny.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just a byproduct of people opening up the doors to me, literally and
Mm-hmm.
metaphorically. And so there is no Dana Abraham without all the people that played a part in me becoming and sitting
Mm-hmm.
here across from me today. You included. You know what I mean? Because for every person you get to speak to, you get to see a version of yourself and you get to see a development, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's good or bad, you do. You have to pay homage to the people that have broke you just as much as you do for the people that have made you.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just thoroughly so grateful for so many people that have impacted me both positively and negatively. More so even than negatively because that led to my positive
Mm-hmm.
outcomes
Mm-hmm.
and perseverance and resilience.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then I guess for the first time ever, I'll say this because I'm now talking about it and it's just hitting me and it feels like it's something that feels right.
Mm-hmm.
I've never said this before. I guess my father, because
Mhm.
I've always looked at him as somebody that's been an enemy, but in this very moment right now, I'm now looking at him as somebody that's made me who I am today.
Mhm.
So I guess top 100.
Yeah, he makes some lists.
Yeah,
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 what you said about the negatively and positively, I think is huge because it's like those people do make you like. I told my brother this a million times. Like before I started this show, the
yeah,
girl I broke up with, I thought I was gonna marry her. Like everyone who around me knew at that
yeah.
point, like it was one of those.
Yeah, I thought about that about the girl when I was crossing the street. She gave me the look.
She gave you the look.
No, I'm
The
kidding.
look.
Yeah.
It's like I knew that look was
But,
enough.
but sorry to cut you off. Go ahead.
No,
Yeah,
no, but
yeah.
like that was such a crazy time. And then after like I was away from it, I was like, you know what? As much as I had this show like in the can, so to speak, and everything
Mhm.
prepared, I might not have started it if I hadn't broke up with her.
For sure.
You know? And it's like, it's not like she was holding me back, you know,
No.
but still, it's kind of like a domino effect how these things happen. And you got to
Yeah.
kind of give credit to however you got to where you are.
For sure.
You know, it could be anything that kind
For
of gets
sure,
you there.
man. Whatever gets you to your destination, man. And
Mhm.
whether it's a car, bicycle, scooter, person,
Yeah.
place, or a thing, you know what I mean? And gratitude is the first word towards any sort of healing. And so that's where I'm really starting at right now at this
Listen,
point in life.
gratitude is the key word for the season. So again,
Absolutely.
hitting all the key points.
Gratitude. That's right.
This I think it must be a rule. I don't know. You're in some different circles, so maybe you can tell me if this is
Sure.
if there's an email chain where this is happening. Right, I'm not on
Sure.
yet. people get $100 million, they buy exotic animals. I don't know if it's the rules or they just tell them to, but Mike Tyson with his tiger, Justin Bieber with his monkey,
Right.
Michael Jackson with his monkey. So it seems like that's just something you have to do.
For
So
sure.
when you get to that $100 million level, what animal are you going to be adding to the fold?
Ironically, it would be a tiger. Me and Mike Tyson. It's right here.
Yeah.
And also, that's a Royal Bengal tiger
Mhm.
from Bangladesh.
Yes.
I spent a really long time in my life wanting to be anything but Bengali or just brown in general. Grew up in predominantly Italian community, white dominated, Caucasian dominated, sorry, I should say. But I mean, whatever, same thing.
They white.
Yeah, they white. And I just started owning who I am as a person. And so I'm from Bangladesh. I was born in Dhaka. The Royal Bengal tigers are animal. I'd own one. And not just that, I find they're ambiverts, very similar to me. They're introverted when they need to be, and they're extroverted and hunt you when they need to be. They're the most dangerous yet underappreciated animal in the wild. My company, the gin company that I'm launching, next year you guys will start to see it pop up, Bay of Bengal. One day, again, this is a first. One day I will probably own the Hamilton Tiger Cats. You know what I mean? You heard it here first, straight up. I've started thinking about it over the last several weeks, and it's something that I'm really going to try to do over the next couple of years.
No, we're not trying to do it. We're doing it.
That's what I mean. And if Ryan Reynolds owns Wrexham, and all, we got Matthew McConaughey on a team down in Austin down there. Hamilton Tiger Cats makes sense for me business wise, economically speaking as well, because if we can get 700 people to our world premiere and we're just starting, imagine coupling that with gin, etc.
Yeah.
Tigers follow me. And so I would have to not own it physically like the animal, but I'm going to own everything with a tiger as in symbol.
Copyright on the tiger symbol.
It's coming.
I feel like you and tigers is a good match for sure. Like there's a vibe there. Like if you were to put out an album, how DMX is holding the dog, it'd be you with the tiger. So
that and like maybe half my face is a tiger, half the face is Clay Amani.
Yeah. That's a crazy mix.
Somebody's dying.
Oh my! Everybody. Everybody. That's a crazy mix.
But it's like I agree with you. I believe that's my spirit animal. Like it's like just kind of hidden in the forest and only comes out when the tiger needs to come out.
Yeah,
for hunting season.
And as well, it's like strong without being overbearing.
Strong without needing to be in your face.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. It's not sneaky, but it's very. What's a good word? It's very private.
Yeah.
And I just think Tiger does emulate my personality really, really well.
No, I like that one a lot. I feel like maybe a couple people have said Tiger before, but I feel like you are the person that fits the most.
Thank you so much. I'll take that.
So yes. That works. This is our last question.
Okay.
Wednesday Wisdom. We look for a motivational quote or saying either that you tell yourself or you share with others. So what is that for you that you kind of remind yourself of or other people just like over and over every single week?
At about 18 years old, I was in need of a community and wanted to fix myself. So I stumbled into the church. Grew up Muslim my whole life. And, but at that moment I lost touch with my family. Very, unfortunate, but I started reading the Bible, and the one passage that I stick with every single day, regardless of religious perspective, I think this is something that anybody can hold true to their hearts. Psalm 112 verse 4. Even in the midst of darkness, light dawns for the upright, for the most gracious, righteous, and compassionate man. I think about that every single day. It's something that will stay with me probably till the day I pass away physically on this world, because we are in darkness more than we are in light. And just those three factors in your characteristics speak more volumes than what you do outside of that. So
you said righteous, compassionate, and what was the third one?
So even in the midst of darkness, light dawns for the upright, for the most gracious. So having that, gratitude, righteousness to always be able to see the right pathway, even when times are difficult, and compassion. When it's easy for you to look at the world and look at it as a formidable enemy, to have compassion and empathy for those around you.
I think that's probably one of the best we got for Wednesday Wisdom. And I feel like those three attributes are something that we got to really hold on to. I feel like those are not valued enough.
It's undervalued for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I feel like gratitude, extremely underrated. We all know about that. Righteous and compassionate. I feel like as humans, we've lost that level of compassion for one another. And I say this a lot. Like if I had a Wednesday wisdom, this would be my Wednesday wisdom.
Wicked.
Is that it's hard to be human. And we always forget that no matter what color someone is, no matter how rich someone is, they still have to figure out how to be human, whatever that means for them. And I think that we have our own idea of how easy or hard it is for someone else. And I think that like even like people do crazy things.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not saying let them pass, but no matter what someone does, you got to understand it's hard to be human.
For sure.
And I think that once you forget that for yourself and you forget for others, that's part of where the problem starts, because I think people forget that for themselves.
Absolutely.
They have things that may solve the problems, whether it's money or status or comfortability, and they forget themselves. It's hard to be human. I'm just
everything is circumstantial, right? So my life is in this shifting sphere right now. But the only way to stay consistent, have that foundation, is to acknowledge that, again, darkness is on its way.
Yeah.
I mean, what did Will say when he got that Oscar speech? He said, Denzel said to him, the devil comes for you at your highest moment.
Yeah.
That darkness, right? So
I love that quote.
You always try to, find the path of graciousness and righteousness and compassion. Because you know what? No matter what elements around you that's uncontrollable changing, you can still have control over how you react to everything.
100%. Man, this has been this is our longest episode so far of season 3. Well, yeah, you totally demolished that. Yeah. Yeah.
Am I not the only one? Or is there one other person or two?
Chris, did someone else finish this season? I think he's the only one. I feel
he might be the only one. There might have been one where there was like a little bit where there was still like.
Oh, I think it was Movi.
It melted?
He melted, but he wasn't gonna drink it like how you drank it.
No, you said empty.
Yeah, no, that's empty. Like
I need a plaque.
Yeah. No. Listen, we have some goodies for anyone who finishes it in season 3, so you'll be getting that 100%.
Amazing, man.
Man, there's been so much gems dropped on this episode. Like, I feel like anyone who's listened to this, made it this far in the pod, like, go back and take some notes. Get out your notebook, take some notes, meditate on a lot of things that were said on today's pod. And I hope that anyone who needed that little push, that this was that push.
Yeah.
I hope that this could have been that extra push to do something, because me and Chris said this before we started recording, like a lot of things that you want to do, you're going to be the first to do it.
For sure.
And I think that that's something that can be very scary, but you probably said 5 things on this pod that you're ready to do or have done, where it's like you're the only one that's done that or is doing that or that you're going to do. And it's like you have to be the first, but it's okay to be the first more than once.
Absolutely. And you know what? After you accomplish one little thing, it gets easier to do the next big thing, because you start creating that level of confidence. If you can live through one failure, the next one gets a little bit easier. And so it's just building up that, I guess, callus, as they would say, for, the difficulties in life.
Yeah, building up that toughness for those moments. Listen, if you want to hear the radio show live, it's CJRU, 12:8 a.m. in Toronto, Wednesdays at 11 a.m. and Thursdays at 11 a.m. If you want to listen to the podcast, make sure you subscribe to us, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts. And as well, leave us a rating and a review, 5 stars, not a single star less. And of course, subscribe to us on YouTube at The Cool Table Live, on Instagram at The Cool Table Live. And I'm adding this to the outro. This is a perfect episode to add this to the outro, because we have my guy on here. And I hope this is something that we can all agree with in this room, okay? This is added to the outro for the rest of the season. I want to cancel canceling and bring back bullying. And until next time, know yourself, know your worth.
My guy. Oh, that was awesome, man.